Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. Hope you can stay with me for the entire episode. Hope you're comfortable and ready to tune out a bit of this from this physical realm and reacquaint yourself a little bit from where you've come from and where we all get to go back to eventually. So this experience is from a lady called Sarah B, and this is her experience. My first near-death experience happened when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was playing with my sister in a sand park in Paris. My sister was on top of a spider made of ropes. I was climbing down the spider to join her. I suddenly felt weird and remember telling my sister that I wasn't okay. I had a huge heartache and fell off the spider. I left my body. I don't remember much about my first near-death experience. I do remember the feeling of unimaginable speed, being inside a tunnel and seeing many pictures. I also recall no pain when I left my body. I came back to my body just as fast as I had left it. I was so cold. When I opened my eyes, I came back. I had sand in my mouth. I told you about this situation of my first NDE because after the first time I went back there quite often. I will use I went back or I went or go because I'm not sure exactly how to describe this place without distorting it or damaging it. Because it's not really a place. It's not there, it's not down there, or it's not up there. It's everywhere. It's far and close at the same time. I remember telling my mother that every time I left, I died. She was convinced that I had a health problem. She brought me to at least a dozen specialists. They never found anything wrong with me, except the last specialist. He told me I was just falling because of my disconnection of my vagus nerve. He explained that it was as if two cables were disconnecting, and that was what made me lose consciousness. I believed the specialist, and my mother. After all, what could I know about it at 12 years old? I left another time after the diagnosis, but I remember it. I just know that I went back. Over time, I came to believe that my travels were only created by my imagination. Despite the fact that it seemed so real to me, all the memories of my travels slowly faded away. Only the memory of that tunnel and all those photos remained. I was immersed in the reality of this life and felt that nothing happened, making my travels like a distant dream. I found myself in a simple vision of life, locked in a very small world. These experiences were more of an escape from my imagination, my fantasy. Several years later, when I was about 16 years old, I went back to this other dimension. It was one night when I was with a few friends. We were all sitting in front of the TV. I was sitting on the sofa next to my boyfriend at the time. We were watching a movie called Fight Club. The film was violent and during a combat scene I started to feel terrible. I immediately asked to stop the movie because I was not well. Everything around me became blurry, and the sounds became distant. I felt like I was leaving my body, and I knew I was going back to this other dimension. It was as if everything was coming back to me. But I was so afraid because I remembered the pain when I went there. And indeed, the same pain happened to me as if my heart stopped beating. But it was as if my heart was turning on itself inside my chest. It is the most physical pain I've ever felt in my entire life. And every time it is the same. I looked at is as a price to pay to go there. I always thought the pain could be comparable to a heart attack, but I'm not sure. After the pain, everything changed. I left my body and didn't look back at my physical body because I didn't want to. I looked only at the tunnel and at the light. I was drawn into that tunnel. I knew this place and everything about it. I had no more questions, no more fears, no more anxiety. I felt only a relief and a peace that was permeating me. I was no longer afraid of pain or anything because I remembered this place. I was rapidly riding into the tunnel. The walls of this tunnel were mainly covered with photos. I was physically in all the pictures, but I didn't recognize myself in all of them. I remember stopping to take a closer look at one of these pictures. In the picture, I was with several people, sitting in the back of a red convertible and driving in a sunny spot. There were 5 of us in the car, and we were all happy. We were laughing together. I didn't recognize myself and the others. I just know it was me. With reflection, I have come to think of these photos could be images of my previous life memories that are stored on the energetic fence of my soul. Sitting in the red convertible, my physical body was totally different from the one I have today. That's why the photo affected me that much, and surely because it contained an important memory. In the tunnel, everything went so fast, but somehow I had the time to see all the photos I wanted to. There was no time. It was like time no longer existed, and that it never existed. I feel that only in the non-physical state can a person understand this notion of without time, or the non-existence of time, because it seems impossible to describe on Earth. At the end of the tunnel, I found myself in a totally white place made of light. Nothing there was material, only the immense white light. There was no end or beginning. It was like being inside an infinite sea of light, with gentle pink waves. The light was not blinding, and it was so beautiful. And above all, it was so warm. This white place of full love, sweetness, warmth, and peace. But I felt love at its highest when 3 immense columns of light came in front of me. These columns of light were actually beings. I have never felt a love such as this one. The love that they have for me and that I have for them is indescribable. No one on earth knows me more than they do, and I know no one more than I know them. I am a part of them as they are a part of myself. even my sister, with whom I am very close, and even my mother seemed and still seems to me like strangers compared to the three beings I met in this other dimension. I know there are many more of these beings where I come from. They are my family. I cannot describe this love because it can only be felt as it exceeds our understanding of love on earth. Nothing can be used to compare it. The love we have on earth is not really love. It is rather an educational love to teach us what love is. We destroy love. We condition love. We suppress love. We manipulate love, thinking we know what love is. Love is everything. Love does everything. And love must be understood. Love is totally misunderstood, and Earth is a great school, an opportunity to teach us about love. These three beings spoke to me in a different language. They used my thoughts, but it was different than thoughts. They reminded me that I had chosen to be incarnated on Earth and that I had to go back to the physical realm. I already knew that being by their side, everything was coming back to me. They gave me so much love. I was at home and I badly wanted to stay there. I did not want to leave and come back to Earth, but I had to come back. That's how it had to be. I remember laughing a lot with them. They understood me. They knew the difficulty of incarnation, as well as I knew it before I incarnated on Earth myself. I was so small compared to them. I didn't see them entirely, they were too tall. It was like being at the foot of Hyperion, the highest tree in the world. Or it was like looking at a cloud that grew from soil of earth to rise up to the heavens. I didn't see their faces, their hands, or their legs. I don't even know if they have any. They are light. Love is light. I know that. A beautiful, pure column of light. That's the only way I can describe these beings. I know now that the place where I met them is just a wonderful transition place. It was like a cross between several worlds, and surely a cross between several universes. But I can tell you that even in this place of transition, no craving exists, no fears, and no lacking for anything. I had everything. I was everything, and I didn't need anything. I knew it and I understood. Everything was simple, in its place. Everything was pure and unconditional love. There were no rules, and all the decisions belonged to me. Nobody decided for me. These three beautiful beings helped me get back on Earth. I don't know how long I was in this other dimension for. It could have been a month, or maybe just a second, or a year, or a day. It's impossible to say. So I went back to Earth. I had to. I went down that tunnel, looked at the pictures again, and I couldn't tell this time if they were the same pictures, but they were there. After the tunnel, I came into the living room and was on the ceiling. My physical body was lying on the couch, and all my friends were around me. They were stressed while moving and touching my body. When I returned to my body, it was very difficult and I was in pain. It was a physical pain, but also a pain in my soul. I was choking, feeling uncomfortable and cold. The contrast was like being in a huge lake of pure, clean, and warm water, with this pure water becoming me, covering me with love, extending my being to the sky, then suddenly finding myself inside a small box open to the dark, rainy sky, in a deserted, cold street in town where every drop of rain that fell on me brought ice into every inch of my blood. I opened my eyes. I wanted to cry and leave. I saw my friends above me. They were panicked, talking to me, moving and waiting for an answer from me. But I didn't want to answer. I was upset, as if it was their fault I had to come back. Of course they had nothing to do with this. The upset feeling lasted only a few seconds. During the next hour, I felt very tired and said very little. It was as if the effort of speaking weighed me down, and my tongue felt heavy as iron. I just asked one question. How long was I gone for? And my friend said, I don't know, about 40 or 50 seconds. It was incredible. Now that I was back in my human body, I would have said I was gone for about 10 years. These trips I have into this other dimension have been the greatest experiences of my life. Nothing will reach the height of my feelings and emotions during these moments. I am sure I have been there all the other times before the diagnosis. Unfortunately, I have just a few memories of my travels as a child. It is difficult to adapt to Earth after coming back from a much higher and evolved place. I think I've never really adapted to this world. I live and I try to do my best to complete what I've come for. Of course, I've tried to escape this reality through drugs and alcohol. I experienced depression and a desire for death. But I would have never killed myself, since I know how important and precious life is. I spent all those years waiting for the end of this life, wasting my time. I think my incarnation down here is more difficult than I thought it would be. The loneliness is so heavy. I started writing, and I'm going to finish this book that I began writing 3 years ago. With my book, I travel and I see different worlds and planets, places where I'm sure I've been before. Some will surely tell me that it's all fruit of my imagination. But to me, imagination is more than a fruit. Imagination creates and is real and is powerful. It is a door to memories and a places that only the unconscious sees. I have not spoken about my near-death experience to my own mother, my sister, or to any of my friends. It was only recently that I had a desire to communicate on this subject. I want to talk about it, share it, and stop my silence. But it is difficult for me to find an open mind with attentive ears for such stories. Only our testimonies of near-death experiences can offer us a tiny answer, like a perfume among the fragrances of a billion flowers. And this is the end of Sarah's experience. So it was a little confusing there at the start when she was talking about the experiences she had as a really young child. But this last one she had, which says was in 2003, when she was 16 years old, is the one she remembers the most. So I'll just go through that again to see if we can make a little bit more sense of this beginning, and then give it a little bit of analysis when she gets into the main one she had when she was 16 years old. But after this initial confusing start, it was a really interesting experience, and one I enjoyed reading, and it was actually excited to see where she went with this experience, and how she wrote it, because yeah, it was actually enjoyable for me to read. Sometimes these experiences can be a little bit all over the place, and difficult to read and understand, but that one kind of rolled off the tongue a bit, so a good sign from my point of view anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. So this one starts off, so what you got to remember, there's I don't know, there's three, I think, experiences she talks about here. The first couple she doesn't really remember, and the last one when she's 16 is the one that she goes into a fair bit of depth at. So a little bit insignificant, these first ones, but anyway, I'll try and decipher it for you the second time I go through it, see if it makes a little bit more sense. So first one happens when she's about 5 years old. She's in a park in Paris. She's playing in a playground with her sister. She feels this incredible pain in her chest. And then next thing she knows, she's falling off the play equipment, and crosses over from this realm to another dimension, where she finds herself racing through this tunnel, and comes around again, tells her mum what happened, and her mum gets worried, thinks she's got some health issues, and goes to a few doctors, and finally one doctor says, yeah, it's something to do with your vagus nerve, and when this disconnects, it's creating a problem where you black out, and this is why you are falling off the equipment. And this was her official diagnosis as a young child. But this diagnosis is what, or this health issue is what is giving her access to this other dimension. She is obviously regularly blacking out, and when this happens, she seems to be able to cross over and experience this heaven-like state, and hook up with these other beings she seems to know very well. But yeah, we'll get into that as she it describes this more profound and vivid experience as a 16-year-old. So here we are now. So she's 16 years old. She's watching a movie with her boyfriend and a couple of friends, and the movie is Fight Club, which was a pretty big movie around, I don't know, was it the late 90s, and Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, so I'm sure most people know of it, and as you know, it is a fairly violent movie, if you've seen it, of course. And she's watching this film, and she's getting a little bit sick from viewing this violence, and all of a sudden she starts to feel really terrible, and next thing she knows, she's kind of jumping out of her body, or sort of coming in and out of her body. Like 1 minute the pain's intense, and then the next she doesn't. She feels a little bit disconnected from this pain. And then she seems to jump permanently, or it's not permanent because she comes back, but she seems to jump over this barrier and stay in this other dimension for a longer period of time. And as soon as she does that, she is in this tunnel, and she's zooming through the tunnel at a really high speed. And in her case, she's her tunnel is not dark or nondescript. There's actually some photos on the side of the wall. What I found interesting when I was reading through this is she sees one photo in particular, and it's of her sitting in the back of a red convertible and driving in a really sunny spot. And she's looking at this photo, and she has a really strong attachment to it, and she connects. There's 5 people in this picture in this red convertible car. They're all laughing in the photo, and she seems to lock into one of the people in particular. And she has this intuition, this knowing that this is her or was her. And she then seems to associate the person that she's seeing with a previous life she's had, because it's totally different to the current body she's in. Now, the bit that surprised me is this experience is only happening in the year 2000, and I don't know how long red convertible cars have been around, but what, 40, 50 years, you would have thought, tops, by when this experience happened. So what, they probably go back to the 50s or maybe 40s at most. And she's 16 when this is happening. So if you do the maths, that means she would have been born around 1980. So for her to have had a previous life, it would have to have meant that she had had a very young life in the previous life, and died at a young age, I mean, and then immediately come back into a new body for that to be true. I guess that's possible. Reincarnation for me is a very interesting topic. I'd love to get into the nuts and bolts of how it actually worked. I've scoured lots of experiences. I've actually bought a book on it as well. I haven't actually read it yet, but understanding reincarnation is something I would like to do, and this is mathematically possible, but I don't know. Is that could she be reading this situation wrong? Could she just have a strong attachment to this person she's seeing in this red convertible because it might be a member of her soul family, for example, or there could be some other significance rather than it being an actual previous life. But regardless, I guess it doesn't really matter. Just a little bit of my opinion on that part of this experience. Not taking anything away from Sharon and her experience. I really am enjoying this. So she sees this photo and it really affects her, and she finds some sort of significance, and it's possibly because it could be one of her past lives. But anyway, she's blurring through the tunnel. She says she could have kind of stopped and analyzed all these photos she's whizzing past if she wanted to, because there was no such thing as time. Time in this tunnel has ceased to exist. And she says, which I totally agree with, that for someone to understand what a dimension of no time is, you really can't unless you have been there yourself. It's when you're in a world where time is such a significant factor in it, like it is in this physical realm as a human being, and we all basically function to a set routine and live by what the clock says. to go to a place, and it's not just that, not just our daily routine, but time itself is causing us to age and affecting all kinds of facets of our experience. So to go to a place where everything stops, there's no A to B, it's just is, and nothing's getting older, there's no day, there's no night, there's just whatever this dimension is like, and everyone seems to have a bit of a different experience in it. It's one underlying truth is, though, that everyone says that there is no time, and I guess that makes sense when you think that the soul is an eternal eternal creation that is ageless and indestructible. So it makes sense for the soul to come from a place where time doesn't exist. So she's slowly kind of detaching from this physical realm. Time is becoming non-existent. She feels like she's detaching from her humanity and becoming more spirit, and getting closer to the end of the tunnel, and finally reaches it. And there she finds herself in this place of light. It's just made of light. Nothing material, only immense white light. It's like she's just arrived in infinity. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's just this white room. And wouldn't this be strange? Like, coming from this world that we are in now, where there's time, where there's contrast, where there's colors, where there's this body we're in, where there's all these relentless experiences going on around us, and challenges and events, to go to this place where everything stops and it's pleasant to be in. There's no need to rush anymore. There's no need to be somewhere, to do something, to be someone. You're just there, and that's all that matters. And not only is it peaceful, it's full of love. And she says warmth and sweetness. So it's a nice place to be. It's where you where you want to end up. If you ever, when we cross over, if we ever get the choice of where we want to go, this is the kind of place that sounds like a good place to end up. And she says these intensely relaxing, loving feelings intensify as these three beings of light come towards her. She calls them beings, but she doesn't describe them having any physical features. They're just made of light. They're just columns of light, and that's how they appear to her. And this line here resonates with me, because I'm hoping that we all have this attachment to some guides or spiritual beings on the other side. And she says that she instantly knows that the love she has for them and they have for her is immense and indescribable. She says, there is no one on earth that knows her as well as these beings do. Not her mother, not her sister, and she's close to these people on earth. She says very close to these her mum and her sister on earth. But the way these beings can connect with her makes the attachment she has to her family on earth insignificant. It just doesn't compare. The people on earth actually, she says, feel like strangers to her compared to how connected she feels with these other beings. Now, these, she says, are the beings that feel like her true family. So, this is interesting. Like, these families we have on Earth, we can all relate to that. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect family, but we can all relate to what she's saying here, that there is a strong, really strong connection to the people you are blood related to. There's going to be some in your family who are closer than others, but generally speaking, there's going to be at least one or two of your family members who you have a really strong connection with. And to think that that connection is really insignificant compared to the connection that this person has, and therefore, through extension, we all should have with beings in this other dimension is remarkable. She says, and this I also found rather interesting when I read through it the first time, because I can really relate. I often ask myself this question as well. Like, she says, the love we have on Earth is not really love. It's just this whole experience on Earth is a bit of a lesson on what love is. Because on Earth we destroy love, we break up with people, we condition it, we say, look, I'll give you my love if you give me yours. We push love away. We just kind of have this inkling as to what it is, but we don't really know how to deal with it or how to be with it, because it's such a powerful force. We want it constantly, and to keep it within our lives, we become protective of it. And if that means pushing other people away to keep it, or destroying others, or changing certain situations to keep what we call love within our lives and within our experience, that's what we do. But as we often hear from these experiences, love is not like it is on Earth in the spiritual realm. It is totally misunderstood here, and she says that love on Earth is not what it is in this other place. It's totally different, in fact. And I often think of myself, because I'm single and I'm looking to start a relationship, and I often think, is what is this love that I'm seeking? Is this relationship that I want, that I'm looking for, going to give me more peace in my life, or is it possible for me to love life as much without another significant partner in my life? So I'm kind of torn between the two. Like, I enjoy aspects of being single, and I also crave parts of a relationship as well. But somewhere deep inside me knows that a relationship is never going to answer all your solve all your problems. It's potentially going to create more. But what I think is loving yourself is probably a good place to start. Just being comfortable in your own being, and enjoying your own company is probably a good place to start in terms of understanding what love is. Because they say, if you can't love yourself, you can't truly love another anyway. So for those of you confused by love and relationships and the definition and what that actually means, join the club, because I'm certainly up there myself. But it seems once we cross over to this other dimension that we get a better idea of what love, true love is, and it seems to be a lot more unconditional up there. So Sharon says these three beings who are giving her this love are speaking to her in a language she doesn't recognize. And it's more through telepathic type communication. And they're telling her that it was her decision to come to Earth. It was her decision to choose the part of Earth she went to. And it's really not an option. She can't stay in this dimension. She has to go back. So I'm kind of a little bit confused there why it can be her decision to come here, but it can't to come to Earth in the first place. But it can't be her decision now that she's in this other dimension to stay. Like why does she have to go back? And she doesn't really give a reason as to why she feels she has to come back, only that she does. She doesn't want to leave this dimension, but feels that it is the right thing to do. And the guides are telling her, like, they can understand it. It's hard because they know how hard incarnation is, and and they say to her that you knew how hard it was going to be before you go to Earth. She then goes on to say that this place where she met these guides is just a transition place. Now, I was reflecting on this a bit myself this morning. I was thinking these environments souls find themselves in when they cross over, and how different they can be. Like, why is that? And I guess one possible theory is that it is an experience created for us to provide a period of adjustment from leaving the physical realm over to integrating into the spiritual dimension, because it's obviously very, very different, and the experience we get is going to be a an adjustment period that will help us transition. Because who knows exactly what happens when the soul isn't given that option of coming back. It's staying there, and does that change the experience again? Does it go to a whole new level? That's obviously impossible for us to know unless you are able to channel a wise being and get that sort of information. Regardless, this place that she went to was free of fear. She didn't need anything. There was no cravings. Everything she wanted was right there. It was totally, she was totally content and needed nothing at all. It was simple, but it was bliss. It was pure and unconditional love. There was no rules, and anything she wanted to do was totally up to her. Which I kind of like the sound of that. Having decisions, it's nice to think that when we are in this other dimension, there's still decisions to be made. What those decisions are, I don't know. Does that mean we get to pick our next lifetime, or choose to go and experience another universe? Or can we just cruise around in spirit form and enjoy that freedom for a while? Or can we choose to go and connect with the source and just be in a blissful state of love forever? It's hard, because it's hard to work that out, because there's no time over there. So it's not like you make a decision and then you go and do it, because there's no now and then. It's all happening at the same time. So it kind of makes you think that how can making a decision even be possible? Because making a decision means choosing a path for your future, but there's no future there. It's all now. So I don't even really understand how decisions could be relevant, and how that all works, but that ties into, how does recreation happen? Is there a decision to actually come here, like they say there is in this experience and a lot of others, that we actually choose to come to Earth? The more I think about it, the more my head starts to spin. So yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. So she comes screaming back through the tunnel. There's all these same pictures on the wall, but she can't work out if they're the same ones as when she was going up the tunnel towards the heaven-like dimension. And she gets to her body. I really like how she describes this, how she describes coming into her body, because it kind of captures the terror that it would be like. So she's screaming through this tunnel, and she opens her eyes. She sees her friends above me. They're all panicked, waiting for her to talk, but she doesn't want to say anything. She's kind of grumpy. She's in a bit of a sad, because she's back in her physical form and she doesn't want to be there. So she just has a bit of a sulk. And the way she tries to describe this for us is interesting. She says, okay, so this is the contrast. This is what it was like when I was in this other dimension. I was in this huge lake, pure, clear, warm, with this pure water flowing over me, covering me with love, extending my being to the sky. And then with the click of her fingers, she's suddenly finding herself in this tiny box, like coffin-like structure, open to the dark, rainy sky, in a deserted, cold street in town, where every drop of rain that falls on her brings an icy chill to every inch of her body. So yeah, you get the contrast there, and this is what the comparison is like for her. This is what this physical realm and the darkness that we are all in, if you want to view it that way, it is the polar opposite of where we come from. But you know, there's enough in this physical realm, for me at least, to keep me going. And there is beauty out there, but it's not as relentless, I guess, as the beauty you find in this other dimension. And it's punctuated by periods of darkness that never seem to stop arising. So she goes into a little bit of her life on Earth after this experience. She says, you know, she's never really felt like she's fitted in here. And because of this, she's tried to escape the feelings of darkness through taking drugs and alcohol, and she has experienced depression and suicidal thoughts. But at the same time, she says she would never actually go through with it because she knows how life is important and precious. I can relate to a lot of that myself, having experienced all that too. She feels that the years she spent resenting her life have been a waste of time, and feels that the incarnation she is currently having is a lot more difficult than it was she thought it would be like in the spiritual realm, which is another interesting thing to say from my point of view. Kind of justifies in a way the existence of this planet and the experiences we're all having, and why we as spiritual beings crave to come here, because you can't understand what darkness and suffering and challenges and life in a physical body is like until you are actually here. She says this herself. Sharon just says this. She says, look, I planned this life and it's way harder now that I'm actually here in person. And that says it all for me. That's probably a big reason why we are all here, because us as spiritual beings have a lot more knowledge and understanding than we do in our physical bodies. But even with that, all that wisdom and knowledge as spiritual beings, until we are actually here, we can't truly know exactly what this experience as a human is like. And it's hard, it's dark, it's challenging, but I guess that's a lot of the reason we decide to come here, to be more grateful for the light and the loving dimension we come from, because clearly this place is opposite to that in a lot of ways. Like a lot of people, she ends by saying, I have not wanted to share this experience with anyone, even these close family members like a mum and sister, or even her good friends. And she doesn't say how long it's actually taken her to share what has happened to her, but I'm glad she did. It was a really interesting experience, and she raised a couple of good points, particularly for me, the question of what love is. And I guess it can mean something different to every person, and at the same time, although it's difficult to define, we all kind of have an idea of what it's like, and we've all had an experience or are experiencing it right now. But I don't think, it has to be in relation to another person. It can be loving your work, or loving being of service, or loving a connection to a higher being, or just loving yourself. It can be so many different things, and that's what makes it difficult to define, I guess. She says, and I like this very last line, her reluctance to share her experience is finally overcome, because she believes, and this is what she says, that the testimonies of what happens during an NDE can offer us a tiny glimpse and a bit of an answer as to what happens in the afterlife, and give us some sort of pointers as to what it's like. And she uses a nice little comparison here. She says, it is like the perfume among the fragrance of a billion flowers. So her little experience is just one little delightful smell of what is part of a much bigger and more grandiose experience than I'm guessing we can imagine. So this is what I read week in, week out, and it's always beautiful to hear that there's such a magic place that is beyond this physical realm, and something that's waiting for us all to go and explore and experience when this incredible and miraculous experience of being a human is over, which eventually it will be for all of us. So this is not the end. This experience is not the end. It's obviously, this experience we have as a human is one of probably an infinite number of things we can do. So yeah, enjoy it as much as you can. This life as a human, it's not an easy walk, but it's a courageous one to take, and we should all be proud of ourselves and keep trying to learn what love is, and if you can tap into it, start pumping it out, because this world certainly needs it. So yeah, I'll leave it there on now that we're talking about love. I send you what I consider love, which is good wishes, which is peace, which is contentment, which is respect. Just want you to have it. I want you to take it from me and accept it. I don't want anything back. That's my wishes for you. So on that note, I'll wrap it up and say goodbye and talk to you next week. Have a good week.